warned my ex's new military boyfriend about her elaborate lies and infidelity, and now she's furious, fearing exposure. I was 36, and my ex, 34, and I had spent 15 years bound together by the uneven glue of a relationship that was, predictably, never quite perfect. We shared a child, poured our youth into a future together, pressed on until it became impossible to ignore that we were suffocating each other. The breakup felt inevitable, just the last step of a slow unspooling. From there, we focused on co-parenting, and resentment softened as we prioritized our child's happiness. Eventually, I moved forward. I met someone new, and for the first time in a long while, I found myself happy in ways I'd forgotten existed. That relationship lasted a year, barreling headlong into chaos at the end, a spectacular train wreck that demanded my full attention even as I wanted to look away. When it was finally over, I knew I needed space to heal, to close up any wounds left messy and raw. Yet, in the wake of that breakup, my ex resurfaced again and again with a familiar refrain: she still loved me. She wanted the 15 years we shared to not have been for nothing. She'd talk about how our child was happiest when families were whole, when parents could share the same roof. Each time, I stood my ground. I reminded her of our unhappiness and of the impossibility of ever returning to what once was. But she persisted. This time, her pitch shifted, weaving in how she had worked on herself, rediscovered her dreams, and learned to be financially responsible. She insisted her life was together now, and above all, she wanted her future entwined with me. After so much time picking apart the threads of us, I hesitated. Still, the hope that we could pull together for our child's happiness gnawed at me. Love lingered, brittle but unbroken. Maybe this time would be different. I wanted to believe that. Against my doubts, against the caution I'd built up like armor, I let myself come home to her. I gave her everything she said she'd missed: touch, emotion, presence. I became the partner she'd always asked me to be, except for a marriage proposal. That had never been in the cards for me. I was honest about not believing in marriage, and had explained that years ago. But I promised to be everything else: a partner, a co-parent, care and commitment without a ceremony. Of course, we didn't end just because of difference in ceremony or passion. There was always the problem that grew in the background, slowly poisoning everything: her inability to be financially stable. She chased dreams of more, bigger houses, new cars, expensive vacations, designer bags, yet never contributed. It became my job to keep the roof overhead, food stocked, utilities running, and our child cared for. I even paid her way through college 3 times as she cycled through failed courses, a degree, then an advanced one in what she called her dream job. When she finally landed it, making more money than me, it didn't change things at home. The spending escalated, bills forgotten, phone, car insurance, her brand new car. I picked up every shortfall, stretching myself thinner and thinner, desperate to keep it together. All the while, she dreamed of more, never acknowledging the reality that I brought to the table literally. Every time I tried to get her to see, explaining with spreadsheets and printouts, nothing changed. The more I struggled, the more I withdrew emotionally. And so, eventually, we fell apart. So when she called me back, swearing she'd changed, I wanted to believe it, for her sake and our child's. She told me she was handling her bills, saving money, even staying financially stable for the first time. So I tried again, arriving home one Monday after work, surprising our child, who burst with excitement to see me on an unscheduled day. I made a point to show up, to pour in the emotion, the affection, everything she said was lacking before. She was radiant. I started to believe maybe we could have this, a second chance, maybe all her promises were real. It lasted 12 days. On the 13th day, we were taking the boat out. As we pulled away from the marina, she said we needed to talk. I stalled, suggesting we wait until we dropped anchor. Our child ran off with friends, giving us some privacy. Then she laid it bare: during our separation, she'd been talking to people on Facebook, dating. There was one guy in particular. It hadn't worked out between them, at least not at first. But he'd recently reached back out, interested in a real relationship, and suddenly, she found herself more interested in exploring that than trying with me again. I sat there, stunned, the breast punched from my chest. I asked why she asked me to come back at all, if this was always a possibility. Her answer was cold. She recognized everything I'd done, even acknowledged that I'd chosen her, knowing every flaw and mistake, but she didn't trust me. I wasn't safe for her. I was a risk she wouldn't take because she was terrified I might someday use her past against her, turn a future fight into a weaponized history. I'd always been the reliable one, the provider, the foundation beneath our family, and now, I was the risk. She wanted something new, untouched by failures and baggage. That's when it clicked: I was just the backup plan. The security she could fall into while waiting for something better. I tried to explain. I had moved on once, the only one who had truly moved forward. She was the one desperate to pull me back. She repeated, she deserved happiness, wanted something clean, untouched, someone who didn't know what she'd been or done. I told her, point blank, I gave everything for 15 years, made her life possible even as she wrecked our finances and our peace. That small hope, that tiny seed clinging to love inside me, died right then and there. The bond I'd protected and mourned for years broke into ash. She wouldn't give me answers, I didn't deserve them, apparently. Anger, betrayal, devastation warred inside me. I stormed off, mind reeling in a haze. The only clue she offered about her new distraction was a first name and mention that he was military. That was enough to send me checking her Facebook, the last desperate swirl of curiosity in the storm she'd left behind. And there he was. I'll admit, the hurt and the anger were a toxic mix inside me. After everything, I decided he needed to know the whole truth, every ugly detail she desperately wanted to keep hidden. So, that's what I did. I messaged him, hey name, you probably know who I am. If not, I'm girl's name now X. She's not who she seems. I only wish I'd had some kind of warning about her morals, her history, anything before I ever got involved. She's cheated on every relationship she's ever touched, and I was no exception. She even admitted to me she used her husband just to get out of her small town. She claimed sometimes that he beat her and worse, that he pet her. But I saw how she staged everything. She would hurt herself, create bruises, push arguments in public, all to make him look evil and to get sympathy. She even lied about her high school boyfriend, said he threatened her life, that he'd beaten her, chased her all the way to Tulsa, broke into her place, and assaulted her. And once again, I watched as she inflicted wounds on herself, torso bruises, a facial cut to sell the story. She didn't stop there. One day, she claimed she had cancer. She actually researched everything, patients with a specific diagnosis, what drugs they'd use, the side effects. She acted out the symptoms. She told me she needed to go to Dallas for surgery, something about a tumor between her lung and heart. Before she left, she told me not to contact her, said her husband would have her phone while she went through surgery. Asked me not to talk to him about it either because it was too heavy an emotional trigger for him. When she got back, she wore wound bandages, said she needed emergency care one night because the staples in her chest had pushed out. But she wouldn't let me take her to the ER. She made me drop her off to her husband, and brought me a fake staple as proof the next day. She kept those bandages on 4 weeks, and later, when the scar was hardly visible, explained that it had been all laparoscopic, and the staples had been internal. It all fell apart during her pregnancy. She didn't list cancer in her family medical history, and when I pressed her, explaining how vital it was, had to threaten calling her mother for the truth. That's when she finally admitted it was all an elaborate lie just for attention. She lied about everything. She tried to become a stripper to pay her bills, all while lying to me about where she worked. Lied about her money always hiding, always overspending. She left my house when I demanded she be financially responsible. She told my family I was abusive, that I was cheating, asked for their help to get away from me. During that time, after she found out she was pregnant, she couldn't survive on her own. Every utility was about to be disconnected, there was no food, eventually she got evicted. While she was gone, she started dating a guy who was deep into drugs, then came back to me, secretly still seeing him. She believed that was justified in case I was just pretending to love and care for her. We tried again. She still refused to make any effort for financial stability. When our child was born, she thought I would never kick her out. Her words, she was secure now. But I'd ended things, told her to leave. I briefly dated a coworker during our break and she called that cheating. I ended that and went back for my 8-month-old's sake. The problems never stopped. She wouldn't manage her finances, which kept tearing open old wounds between us. We parted ways, and she lost her job because she was caught doing things she wasn't qualified for. She came back yet again, but nothing changed. Her lies stayed the same, always on repeat, withholding her whereabouts, lying about her hours and her spending, more cheating, always the same story. When I caught her, she told people we weren't really together, just co-parenting roommates, while insisting we needed to work on our relationship. Evidence finally surfaced. She was trying to cheat with multiple coworkers, maybe already had. She and her friend tried to cover up another cheating incident by saying they'd been drugged, that her friend had even been assaulted. She lied about someone she brought to my house, introduced him under another name. This was supposedly the man who threatened her life, broke in, beat her, the same high school boyfriend from the old drama script stories. Once our relationship truly ended, she set her sights on making my life hell. She vandalized my new girlfriend's car, egged her house, stole her things to dress in them and take creepy photos, and stalked her for months. From June to August 18th, she tried several times to win me back. Once she got what she wanted for a couple weeks, she dumped me, declaring she'd pursue a relationship with someone who doesn't know about her past. She deserves happiness and I've ruined her life. According to her logic, my insistence on basic adult responsibilities was somehow extortion, coercion, and reason enough to cheat. Now I know she's 4 months behind on her rent, her bank account is massively overdrawn, she can't afford essentials for her own home, but there's always money for fast food, coffee, random Amazon junk. I also know she's been seeing both me and the new guy at the same time, so if he's been with her since mid-August, she's been cheating on him too. And yes, believe me, I know I've been a complete idiot for putting up with this all these years, and for ever letting her back in. But at least now, I've told the whole truth. Update 1. It's been quite the journey since everything went down, and I figured it was time for an update. So where is she now, you ask? Well, she isn't with that boyfriend anymore, he's her husband now. They ended up getting married just 6 months after things started between them. But not long after tying the knot, she had to quit her job because of a knee injury that apparently had hurt so bad for years, and she couldn't keep working on it. The responsibility of paying for everything fell on him. He got a major reality check pretty quickly, especially when her almost $5,000 turnpike bill landed in my mailbox, along with a pile of other bills she racked up. I sent that his way and a few others for good measure. That opened his eyes. Unfortunately for her, she's learned that Mr. Military has some deep-seated anger issues, and those surfaced fast, right after their honeymoon phase burned out. As for me, I hit a couple rough spots at first. But I kept at it. I made the choice to step away from dating entirely for a while. It was time to focus on my daughter. I didn't get full custody, but she's with me more than 75% of the time now, plus whenever else she wants to come over. The only communication I have with my ex now is about our daughter. For a little while, things were almost friendly during drop-offs until one day, right in front of her husband, she says goodbye to our daughter, then turns to me and says, "Thank you for keeping her this weekend, have a good week. Love you." I looked over at her husband and, trying to diffuse the weirdness with some humor, asked if he was going to be staying over or if that love you was meant for me. That didn't land well. Things got heated for a few days, and even though it made things rough for me at first, I would have killed to be a fly on the wall in their house after that. The guy was insanely territorial. I made it clear that I was happy to have her out of my life as much as possible, and after that, things finally simmered down. Therapy has become a regular part of my life now. And for anyone who thinks there is some kind of stigma around therapy, don't buy into that. It's honestly been such a good thing for me. If you're struggling, at least give it a shot. A few months back, something unexpected happened. A wonderful woman came into my life. She's my best friend, and so much more. She's incredible with my daughter, and she brings her own amazing kids into the mix. Her family knows everything about my past, and they're always encouraging me to move forward. Life is good. I hope all of you out there are doing just as well. Update 1. 5. The first one was a phone call at 12:41 p.m. I was half asleep on the couch, some true crime rerun mumbling to itself, my daughter sprawled in a blanket fort she and my girlfriend's kids had built earlier that night. The screen lit with his name, not hers. I let it ring once more before answering, because old instincts die hard. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "Can you come get her?" His voice had that thin, papery tremor you hear after a long cry. "It's not safe here right now." There was a crash in the background, like a plate shattering on tile, and then silence, the kind of silence that tells you it wasn't an accident. I was there in 12 minutes. He met me in the driveway barefoot in January, keys clutched in his fist like a weapon he hadn't learned how to use. His jaw twitched. "I'm sorry," he said, choked out like the words were too big for his throat. "About everything." "About?" He gestured at my daughter's overnight bag, pristine and untouched on the porch. "Take her." He didn't invite me inside. I didn't ask. When I got my daughter into my truck, he jogged back to the porch, grabbed a stack of envelopes, and shoved them into my hand. "She's been hiding mail in the oven," he said with a humorless laugh. I turned it on to make pizza and almost cooked our internet bill. Inside the stack were turnpike fines I'd never seen, a credit card statement from a department store I've never set foot in, 2 overdraft notices, and a printout of a GoFundMe draft saved but not yet posted. "Young mom needs help for reconstructive knee surgery urgent." It came with a photo she'd taken in my old backyard, knee wrapped in an ace bandage she'd bought before any doctor had said a word. I drove home with my daughter snoring softly, the kind of deep trust sleep kids fall into when they know they've been scooped out of something ugly and set somewhere warm. I texted her school counselor at 2 a.m. to ask if we could up the therapy sessions, and then stared at the ceiling until the sky went the soft gray of morning. That night set off a chain. He filed for a separation a week later. He texted me once more, outside the court, to say he'd told his command he needed the time and help for counseling. I believed him. He forwarded screenshots when she finally posted the knee surgery fundraiser, still limping in every video, sighing about how she couldn't even stand to do basic chores anymore, and then 2 days after, she was tagged in a boomerang video at a trampoline park, mid-air, hair flying. I didn't send it to anyone. I don't need to play archivist for her anymore. But my lawyer did ask me to save it when the court date for custody modification rolled around. We started doing exchanges at the police station. The first time, she stepped out wearing a walking boot on the wrong foot and kept it on for an hour until she forgot and jogged across the lot to catch a coffee she'd set on her bumper before it tumbled. That would be funny if it wasn't the moment my daughter really saw and grew 2 years older behind the eyes. We sat in the car afterward, quiet. "Is Mom going to be okay?" she asked, small and huge at the same time. I didn't lie. "I don't know," I said. "But you are. And I'm here." We added another session with her therapist. I started saying no to every impulse to fix anything other than what was in my hands. The court listened. There was no grand slam courtroom speech, just documentation and a tired judge who had clearly seen this flavor of chaos before. Exchanges were ordered to the station, a parallel parenting app for all communication, and day visits only for now unless she could show a stable environment proof, not promises. Child support stayed with me. She stared at me 2 beats too long leaving the courtroom and then smiled like we shared a private joke. I looked at the clock behind her. Somewhere in there she tried to apply for a passport for our daughter, out of the blue, told the school there might be a move for better opportunities, and then got very quiet when the passport office called to verify my consent. I got an email from the school principal later that afternoon, neutral words about residency requirements, a reminder that any change has to go through both parents. She tried my phone with a paragraph that started with "You're destroying my life," shifted into "We were meant to be a family," then ended with "I forgive you." I replied in the app, "Please keep messages about our daughter's schedule." Meanwhile, life at my house got unreasonably soft in the best ways. My girlfriend and I signed a lease on a place 5 minutes from my daughter's school, with enough yard for a small, stubborn garden that refuses to care how busy you are. Her kids, mine, built a library in the spare room out of crooked IKEA shelves and garage sale finds, a little crooked kingdom lit by a cheap paper lantern. We made bunk beds one afternoon and learned together that 2 adults who grew up with parents who threw tools instead of instructions can, in fact, laugh their way through 3 hours of Allen wrenches and not break up. I still don't believe in marriage, and she didn't come into my life to fix that. We made vows anyway, quiet ones, a pizza night rule, a rule about never using each other's pasts as weapons, a standing weekly calendar invite for family movie night that we treat like church. There were other small fires. One afternoon, my daughter's soccer coach pulled me aside to say her mom had wandered onto the field at halftime, swaying, boot off, cheeks flushed like she'd been outside too long or under something that tricked her into thinking she was brighter than the sun. She yelled, "It's my baby," daring a penalty kick for the other team. I stood at the edge of the grass, not moving, the way you stand still when a stray dog appears, hands down, voice calm, until she wandered back to the parking lot and into whatever came next for her. I emailed the app, "For games and school events, please sit on the opposite side from my family." I asked the therapist to open a slot. The last big thing came on a Tuesday that felt like any other until it wasn't. I stopped at the grocery store for oranges and walked right into her in the baking aisle, her hair done, a new ring sparkling that was not the one I remembered. Different guy. She was buying 3 boxes of brownie mix and a gallon of milk. She has a pattern of showing up to new homes with baked goods and stories that make people hungry to rescue her. She looked at the ring, then at me, and smiled like we were in on something again. "I'm happy," she said. It wasn't a threat or a plea. It was a line delivered to an audience. I nodded at the oranges and moved on. I got a text from him, the previous husband, later that night, a photo of signed divorce papers on a wooden table, his hand in frame. "Take care of that kid," he wrote. I should have believed you sooner. I told him I hoped he learned what he needed and that we were okay. I don't know where she'll land. There's talk of a move 2 counties over. There's a booth that appears and disappears like a stage prop. There's always a new plan waiting just offstage. But my house is quiet in ways it's never been. Peace isn't loud. It's my daughter doing homework at the kitchen island while the dog snores under her stool, my girlfriend humming off key in the next room, a calendar full of ordinary things that no longer feel like a miracle because they finally are our normal. When my phone lights up now, It's a notification from the parenting app reminding me about a science fair display, not an emergency. I still check it in one breath. Old habits. Then I let it out and go back to slicing oranges and figuring out where the bunk bed is squeaking, and whether tomatoes prefer cruelty or kindness from a novice gardener determined to learn patience the hard way. Update 2. The call came, at 10:18 am. On a Thursday, the kind of bright, ordinary morning that tricks you into thinking the world is a sensible place. Unknown number, local area code. I almost let it go to voicemail until I saw the school's name flash at the bottom. The secretary's voice was the practiced calm of someone who has been trained to sound like a seatbelt. Everything is okay. We just wanted to confirm, did you authorize our daughter to be checked out by an aunt? I don't have sisters. She doesn't have local aunts. I said no without sitting down. The secretary got quieter. Thank you, she said, and I heard her put the phone down to speak to the room. We're not releasing her. The line went on mute, but I could still hear the building, the hollow footsteps, a walkie cracking, the way a school breathes when something off is stepped into its lungs. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, the school resource officer had a woman's ID in his hand and was asking her to point to the signature she'd claimed was mine on a letter that was not notarized and had my middle initial wrong. The aunt was a friend of hers I'd met once at a birthday party years ago, the one who laughed too loud at her own stories and said we were goals while staring over my shoulder. She cheeks flushed her way through an explanation about miscommunication and urgent appointments. My daughter stood by the counselor's door clutching her Harry Potter water bottle like it could cast a protection spell that didn't require Latin. I kept my voice low when I told the officer thank you for doing his job, and then I signed the school's paper with the kind of care you give your name when it's being used like a battering ram. That afternoon I made an emergency filing. I didn't drag in every last ugly thing, just this, clean and simple. The judge read the letter, my text to the secretary, the roster of approved pickup people we'd both already signed, and exhaled so slowly the room seemed to inch backward. Visits moved to the supervised center downtown, the one in an old brick building that used to be a bank. The walls are yellow, probably on purpose, something about calm and sunshine. The toys are wiped down between hands. The first visit, she arrived with a grocery bag of presents, a glittery journal, off-brand AirPods, a dress 2 sizes too small with tags that looked like they'd been cut off another tag. The supervisor slid the bag to the side gently, said gifts go through parents first and we keep it simple. My daughter sat at a low table and built a lopsided tower out of plastic blocks and didn't meet anyone's eyes for 5 minutes. Then she did. And there she was. They colored. My ex tried to braid her hair and asked if I'd been talking bad about her. The supervisor reiterated. We focus on your daughter's day. She pivoted and told a story about a new apartment with white countertops and a community pool. Halfway through, she slipped and mentioned a roommate whose name changed twice. The supervisor wrote without looking like she was writing. There was a knock on my door 2 weeks later, not at 2 a.m. For once, but noon on a Sunday when the dog had just settled into the square of sunlight he chases across the kitchen. C.P.S. 2 women, friendly, badges out, the shoes of people who spend their lives walking into other people's houses and making sure children are okay without making the adults feel like criminals. We received a report, one said. Words like concerns, sanitary, access to food, all careful, all sharp by design. I let them in. Not because I had to, but because I wanted this over before it started. They sat at my table and asked to see her room, the bathroom, the fridge. They met the dog. They asked our daughter a few questions on the couch while I stood in the hall and tried to pretend I wasn't listening to my own parenting being audited. They were gone in 40 minutes with soft words about how sometimes these things are weaponized in custody situations, how it's good to document. I said I understood. I didn't say out loud the part where the call could have been anyone, but I'd already set aside a corner of my brain for the flavor of grief that comes with being unsurprised. Somewhere in there, the need got better on social media long enough for a weekend hike with a new man, and then worse again by Monday for a live video asking for prayers and patience. A GoFundMe went up with the same photo I'd seen in the oven mail stack months before, recaptioned for sympathy and now paired with a picture of her holding a baby blanket at a boutique with a caption that suggested rather than confirmed. Her timeline turned into a choose-your-own adventure of new beginnings, new job prospect, new city possibility, new ring that looked like it might turn a finger green if you washed your hands too often. I didn't chase it. The supervisor emailed me once to say please remind all parties gifts are to be presented at the end of visits and left with staff. The bag had reappeared, bigger this time, stuffed with 2 squishmallows and a book about a girl who gets everything she wants by wanting it hard enough. My ex's mother called me on a Tuesday, like a ghost stepping out of a photograph. I hadn't spoken to her in 4 years. She asked to meet in a diner off the highway where sugar exists in 20 different pourable formats. She sat at the corner table with a coffee she didn't drink and a folder I didn't ask to see. We talked about weather first, then work, then the yard sale she was planning. She didn't badmouth her daughter. She didn't ask me to fix anything. She said, "I'm worried about our daughter," in a voice that had the weight of someone who has been told, for many, many seasons, that worry is nagging. She told me if I ever needed to put her on a school list, she would show up early and wear a name tag as big as a billboard. She told me she was sorry she hadn't seen it sooner, whatever it was. We didn't hug when we left, but she touched my sleeve at the door like you do when you were raised not to cry in public. At the second supervised visit, my ex tried to stage a moment. "Close your eyes," she told our daughter, and when she opened them, there was a kitten in a carrier on the table like she was revealing a magic trick. The supervisor's eyebrows did a slow, impressive climb. "No live animals," posted and posted again. The kitten mewed like a squeaky hinge and our daughter looked at me through the observation window with the expression she started to use, a private little eyebrow tilt that asks, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" The supervisor ushered the kitten back out to a friend waiting in a car. The friend looked like she just realized she was in the wrong room of the internet. Late one night, I got a message in the app, a scan of a flight itinerary for 2 names that were variations on our daughter's last name misspelled, departure out of an airport 2 hours away. The message was a run-on sentence about opportunities in a cousin's spare bedroom and how I was making her into a monster by denying joy. I replied inside the app with all the warmth of a sealed manila envelope, per court order, no travel without written consent from both parents. Consent not given. The next morning the passport office called again, cheerful and completely exhausted. I asked if the file could be flagged. They said it already was. The center switched our slot to mornings because afternoons had started to bring along an entourage new guy, sometimes 2, waiting in the parking lot, leaning against a car with the kind of arms crossed posture that asks for trouble and stares at you like dessert. The staff asked that all +1s remain off-site during visits. I watched him pretend to understand through tinted sunglasses while checking his reflection in the rear view over and over. On a day that felt almost gentle, my daughter had her science fair. She did a project about whether tomato plants like music, because she'd heard me joke that maybe they hated me, specifically. She played classical to one and pop to another and left a third alone to brood in silence. She made a bar graph with colored pencils and titled it like a real study. She didn't win, but she got a ribbon for ingenuity, which is the nicest possible way to tell a child that what they did was weird in the best way. My ex showed up late and stood alone at the end of the gym by the bleachers. She waved a big wave when our daughter got her ribbon and then tried to edge closer to our table, heel wobbling, boot on, off, who can say anymore? The principal intercepted with a smile that contained multitudes. My girlfriend fixed the curling corner of our display board and handed my daughter her water bottle I didn't realize I was holding too. It is stunning how calm a room can be when everyone agrees the rules are the floor, not the ceiling. The last drop at the center, my daughter asked for 5 extra minutes and whispered them into a tissue that she folded and unfolded on her lap. The supervisor nodded. I watched my ex look at her and try to pull a lifetime of choices back through a keyhole with words. It didn't work. It never does. There aren't enough syllables for that. My daughter stood up first. She walked out holding the tissue like a flag of a country only she can visit. In the parking lot she said, "Can I go to the garden store?" So we did. We bought a tomato plant that looked a little defeated and a bag of soil that felt like it weighed the same as a small plant. At home she tucked it into the dirt like she was putting a friend to bed and whispered a song only the 2 of them would know. We wrote the date on a stake and pushed it in. A week later, the center sent a note, visit suspended until further notice, after she arrived visibly under the influence and shouted at a staff member about conspiracies while my daughter sat small and very still with a crayon capped in her hand. Proof, not promises. The email ended, not as a flourish, but as a policy. The court will see it next month. I will show up with the same binder I didn't think I'd own at this age, with tabs and dates and the untheatrical truth. Last night, my girlfriend burned the grilled cheese and we ate it anyway, laughed with our mouths open at the dog who has learned the word cheese and responds to it like a church bell. My daughter measured the tomato plant with a ruler and announced it had grown half an inch, then narrowed her eyes like it was trying to win a bet. I fixed the bunk bed squeak. It was a loose washer after all, not a structural failure like I'd been afraid of in the dark. The phone buzzed on the counter with a single-line notification from the app about a rescheduled therapy slot. No emergencies. No panic. Just a calendar. I turned it face down and went back to rinsing soil off my hands. The water ran clear faster than it used to. I don't know if tomatoes prefer cruelty or kindness, but I'm betting on consistency. I'm finding out that's what grows most things, even the pieces of a life that had to be replanted in the middle of a season.